Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 2 emulation on Android with ARMSX2 or ARMSX2, or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, however you wanted to interpret that. Anyways, ARMSX2 just got a brand new update. So the latest version of ARMSX2 is up on their GitHub, and if you're interested and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. Taking a look here, they say thanks to the hard work of Camfrito Z, public releases of ARMSX2 can resume once again. We last left you with version 0.3.3, but we're now at 0.5.3. And trust me, the emulator looks nothing like before. It's much faster too. We'd love to hear all your feedback, big or small, and as for what's new here, material use support, direct game booting, performance enhancements, and as for what's coming soon, one-click migration from NetherSX2, fully reworked in-game UI, and even more settings and stability improvements. While ARMSX2 is still pretty new to the scene and still arguably very early on in terms of overall development, it does seem like it's making improvements extremely quickly and in leaps and bounds. In fact, after this announcement, there's another one here with another newer version of this thing. It's getting updated very quickly. And speaking about new stuff, next up we're talking about Cxbx, an x86 emulator that just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Cxbx version 5.0 is the latest update, and I would say this is a fairly big update here. I mean, they say right here, this release features a preview for one of the most requested Cxbx features of all time, an integrated machine manager to organize all your emulated setups. This new manager is only meant to replace the old Cxbx manager and other simple front ends. You can still use other managers with more features, such as Avalonia 86. On top of that, mouse input and display output are now much smoother, especially on high refresh rate monitors. And this is thanks to improvements to the emulator's frame timing, input polling, and video rendering systems. MDS and MDF disk image formats are now supported, and even more. I mean, this is a very big release in my opinion. There's a whole bunch of bug fixes as well. And speaking about 86box, next up we're talking about PCBox, which is based on 86box. And no surprise here, PCBox also received a brand new update. So at the time of filming, PCBox 5.0 is the latest update. And they say this is the corresponding release to 86box 5.0 and has everything in it. In addition, fully working SSE2 and SSE3 emulation, experimental disabled SSSE3 emulation, and Windows 8.1 works, some ISOs only. And continuing to talk about new releases, next up we're talking about ROMM or ROMM or something else, I can't quite put my finger on it. Anyways, ROMM is a beautiful, powerful, self-hosted ROM manager and just received a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 4.1.4 is the latest update. And this update has some improvements, fixes, and optimizations, for example, improving library scroll performance, and optimizing database queries. And continuing to talk about updates, next up we're talking about Nintendo 64 emulation with Gopher 64. And Gopher 64 just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 1.1.5 is the latest update. And they say here as for what's changed, they've added an option for analog dead zone when creating a controller profile, defaults to 5%. But they say here because this changes the data structure of the profiles, existing profiles will need to be recreated. And they've also fixed pausing so that it pauses after drawing the screen rather than before drawing. And continuing to talk about updates, next up here we're talking about Retrom. And Retrom also got a brand new update. And for those who may not be aware, Retrom is a centralized game library collection management service with a focus on emulation, configure once and play anywhere. So at the time of filming, version 0.7.33 is the latest update. And I would say this update helps optimize things a little bit. They say Retrom now caches all remote image files on the server, and the client will fetch those copies instead of accessing the external URLs they were sourced from. Let me know your thoughts about that one. Next up, we're talking about something that I would say is pretty exciting in the PlayStation Vita emulation scene, and that is VitaEmu. So at this point in time, VitaEmu is still in very early stages of development. Don't expect a whole lot out of it just yet. At some point in time, it will be released and the source code will be released. Unfortunately, I don't have release dates on any of that just yet, and performance right now seems to be very limited. So at this point in time, it does seem that VitaEmu is running Cave Story, and I guess Gravity Rush can get into the main menus as well. It will be an HLE emulator, and on top of that, the source code will be released at some point in time. This may be something to pay attention to. And speaking about stuff to pay attention to, next up here we're talking about Deecy, which is a Dreamcast emulator written in Zig, and Deecy just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Deecy version 0.5.2 is the latest update. They have fixed a crash on Wayland, they've got experimental support for FLAC compressed hunks and CHD files, and miscellaneous smaller bug fixes. And speaking about small improvements, next up here we're talking about Cxbx Reloaded, which is an Xbox emulator. And Cxbx Reloaded keeps making improvements here quite often. So if we take a look at the recent changes for Cxbx Reloaded, we can see that back in 2024 there were a handful of changes. It seemed that development picked up in December here, but then again it picked up in April. And then most recently, it's been picking up in July into August. And there have been a number of changes in recent weeks and even up to yesterday. So if you are interested in Xbox emulation, I would say keep your eye on Cxbx Reloaded. It seems like it's gearing up for a big release at some point in time. I could be wrong with that one though, but at the same time here, seeing the development continuing on and seemingly increasing in frequency in terms of contributions, Cxbx Reloaded seems to be shaping up very well. And I would say in terms of the overall scene, Cxbx Reloaded and Xemu are probably two that are the most popular right now. And speaking about small changes that may go unnoticed, next up we're talking about GameCube and Wii emulation with Dolphin. And Dolphin has been making a number of changes recently that you may not notice. Now, it's no secret that these emulators get updated quite frequently, and a lot of the times there are updates that people just don't see unless it's pointed out. And this is one perfect example of that. So if we take a look here, they say, old problem where dragging a slider will change the text in a label next to it. The label will then resize, causing the slider to resize. It looks janky, and someone reported some sliders we hadn't fixed. For example, advanced pane and audio pane, and it seems now that that has been fixed. Is this a small update? Yes, but at the same time, it's a neat update and nice to know about. And speaking about changes you might not know about until someone points it out. Next up, we're talking about PlayStation 2 emulation with PCSX2, and PCSX2 continually gets updated. And here's a perfect example of one of those changes you may not know about until someone points it out. So one of the more recent updates to PCSX2 reworks the settings window to make it more consistent overall. I mean, they say right here, there have been a lot of changes made recently that manually add scroll areas to individual settings pages as settings are added and removed. This wastes time and results in an inconsistent user experience as the scroll areas are all inevitably configured differently. A few examples, the folder page having a margin and a frame, the achievements page and the advanced page having no margin and frame, and the rest of the scroll areas have no margin and no frame, and now this has been rectified to be consistent. And speaking about consistency, next up here we're talking about CTGP7, which is a Mario Kart 7 mod. And there's a very interesting announcement you may want to be aware about. They say today is the last day you will be able to update CTGP7 from versions prior to version 1.5.38. The latest update is version 1.5.40. And they say here if you fail to update to the latest version before tomorrow, you will be stuck in the old version and will have to reinstall in order for the updater to continue working. Therefore, we recommend updating to the latest version as soon as possible in order not to be affected by this. And speaking about ROM modding and hacking and patching and that kind of stuff, next up we're talking about Delta Patcher Android. We talked about this one just the other week when it just released. And this allows people to create and apply Xdelta patches on Android. Anyways, here pre-release version 0.5 alpha just dropped. So with this update, they've added a settings page which includes use material U, theme settings, apply use checksum, main compression levels, secondary compression, and source window size. These settings have the same defaults as the PC project. Now, Delta Patcher Android has full parity with the PC project. And speaking about PC stuff on Android, next up we're talking about GameNative. GameNative allows you to play games you own on Steam directly on Android devices, and GameNative just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 0.3.1 of GameNative is the latest update here. They've added greater Steam client compatibility with configurability for less powerful devices. Users can now access Android storage via D drive inside the container for copying over files. And they've fixed a keyboard issue inside the container. Keyboard can be opened more than once. Additionally here, and I would say this is one of the bigger things about this update, they've improved the Steam cloud compatibility. More games should now upload and download cloud saves correctly. And speaking about playing games, next up we're talking about Cowboy Bebop. And Cowboy Bebop for the PlayStation 2 just got a brand new English patch, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this one. So this version of Cowboy Bebop on the PlayStation 2 never received an English translation, but now it's been unofficially translated, and 100% at that. Now this translation is not just simple text, it does all text, graphics, credits, and even more. The only thing it really doesn't have is any English voice acting, which is completely understandable. If you're interested and wanted to learn more about this, again, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below at the bottom. And the link to the GitHub where this is completely open source is there as well. And speaking about mods, next up we're talking about a little bit of controversy in the Smash scene with a modder. Apparently here a modder created a Balatro mod for Mr. Game & Watch and locked it behind a paywall on Patreon. But in my opinion here, there's absolutely zero surprise that the modder received backlash for locking this mod behind a paywall. I mean, arguably here they don't own the assets for Balatro nor Smash Brothers, and locking a mod behind a paywall is asking for trouble. Just my opinion on the matter. Anyways, here I guess there was some harassment and then the modder just locked everything up altogether. However, for the harassment, I would say things are completely unacceptable. I mean, the modder says, I have removed the membership tiers from my Patreon. I have received too much harassment, numerous insults, and quite a few DMs telling me to myself, among other nasty things. Now, taking a look at the comments, and it seems that things are very mixed all over the place. I would say that harassment is not the way to go, and education arguably is. But this person says, for example, this is a shame because you deserve to get a bag off of this. And this person says, God forbid someone who works hard wants their fair compensation for their efforts. And then on the flip side, we have comments like this. At Nintendo America, at Nintendo, this man is making money off one of your old games. And paywalling mods is how mod communities die, by the way. In my opinion here, paid mods are arguably not great for the scene. I mean, companies do pay attention to mods. For example, we talked about it the other day with Take-Two issuing a DMCA against a nude mod for one of the characters in Mafia. And in terms of modding overall, if someone is making money off the IP of the company is probably going to be paying attention. And speaking about making money, next up we're talking about a gaming handheld here from MagicX. And MagicX seems to be making a 2DS, 3DS kind of device that looks very interesting. Now by device, I mean devices plural. Take a look here. This is the Retro DS. This is the 245, which looks very similar but a little bit different to the Retro DS. And then also the 248. It looks like the Retro DS, the 245 and 248 are going to be released in 2026. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of information about them just yet. The Retro DS is featuring a 4.1 inch and 3.4 inch screens at 720p. The 245 is 1080 by 1260. And the 248 is 1440 by 1080. And speaking about handheld gaming, next up we're talking about smartphones and Abxylute. And this one is very interesting. I guess Abxylute is working on a magnetic smartphone controller that will work with smartphones or smartphones with cases that have a magnet in them. And this one looks, well, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a price or release date or anything of that nature just yet. But in terms of pocketable devices and convenient devices for wireless smartphone controllers, this may be something that people are interested in. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And last up here, we're talking about Nintendo, and I'm assuming a lot of people will have opinions about this one, but check out this headline over at VGC. Japan's National Library says it won't be preserving Switch 2 game keycards. The library requires a copy of all new publications by law, but says Switch 2 game keycards aren't eligible. So from my understanding here, game keycards, I guess, are not considered physical media. Surprise, surprise, and I'm assuming a lot of people will talk about that one and debate on whether or not game keycards are actually physical media. But basically only physical media that contains the content itself can be preserved. And with game keycards, that seems pretty cut and dry because the content is not on the game keycard. I'm not going to lie here. I am really curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, so let me know in the comments below. Personally here, I'm not surprised by this at all, and I think the entire situation is kind of funny. I'm not the biggest fan of game keycards, in fact, quite the opposite. And I would say this completely makes sense. Game keycards to me are just kind of download codes. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We crammed a lot into this episode today. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.